This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. We continue in the prophet Hoshea. We're up to the 11th chapter, Perkid Aleph. Rebbeinu Shalom says the famous words, Kinar Yisrael, Israel is a young, va'oihavehu, and I loved him. Umi Mitzrayim karasi livni, and from Mitzrayim I called him as my son. Says Rashi, Umi Mitzrayim karasi livni, who did I call out? How did I call out to them as my son? Ayidei nevi'ai, through my prophets. Lihidavek b'tayrasi, I called out to them through my prophets to cling to my Torah, but they didn't do that. Vehema also, what did they do? We're going to see. Now Rashi has a very interesting reading of this pasuk, different than other mafarshim. The previous pasuk said, Kacha asalachem beisel, v'nei roas roaschem, b'ashachar nidmoi nidma melech Yisrael. Says Rashi earlier, all of the punishments that befell the Jewish people were caused by the calf in Beisel. The evil of your wickedness, bashachar nidma nidmai. You slept as if in the night. Kalaymar, there's no kayach. Why? Because you were menuar mikol tov. You were empty of all good. That means Rashi learns the pasuk, Kinar Yisrael va'oihaveu, for Yisrael is a nar, and yet I loved it, is that they were empty of all good. They were empty. Let's see the Metzudas David. Metzudas David says, Kinar, oidoy ben arusai. When they were still in their youth, mishubud b'Mitzrayim, enslaved in Egypt, ahavtiv, I loved him. Umi Mitzrayim, me'es yatzam mi Mitzrayim, from the time that they left Mitzrayim, karasi es b'ni, I called him my son, Ratzalaymar shalachti elav, I sent to him, avadai hanavim, likroi lai, lashav elai, to call out to him, to return to me. So the Metzudas David is reading this pasuk, that from the time of the youth of the Jewish people, Rebbeinu Shalom I reached out to, Klal Yisrael, and I called out to them to serve me, and we're going to see what the results were. But there's also a very interesting way of reading this pasuk, a beautiful pshat. Is there over here a Chumash Mekrois Gedolos on Shemais? The pasuk says, it should be in one of those shelves. I saw in the Sefer Imrei Baruch. Thank you. Now this is Beis Yehuda. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. Okay. In the Sefer Imrei Baruch on Parshas Kisisa, he brings down from the Rinas Yitzchak, Rav Ram Yitzchak Saratskin, who quotes Rabbi Yisrael Salanter saying Pshan this pasuk. Kinar Yisrael v'oihavehu. Yisrael is a nar, and therefore I love him. Why does Rebbeinu Shalom love Klal Yisrael? What elicits the love of the Rebbeinu Shalom? When a person has an attitude that even if they're 50, 60, 70 years old, that they're still a nar, they're still in the beginning. They're still starting out. They still have yearnings and ambitions to grow. Kinar Yisrael v'oihavehu. Klal Yisrael always considers themselves a nar. They always consider themselves young, with ambition to grow higher and higher. Says Rabbi Yisrael, that's why the Rebbeinu Shalom loves Klal Yisrael. In fact, you look in the Baal HaTurim, in Parshas Truma, the Baal HaTurim says on the pasuk of the Kruvim, it says, it says, V'asisa shnayim kruvim zahav. Says the Baal HaTurim, shnayim kruvim. Kruvim kravia, the Baal HaTurim says. Kruvim are kravia, children. Why are there children on the Arain? Because the reason why the Rebbeinu Shalom loves Klal Yisrael is this pasuk, Kinar Yisrael va'oihavehu. Klal Yisrael considers themselves like a child, and I love them. Therefore, says the Baal HaTurim invokes this pasuk in Hoshea, Kinar Yisrael v'oihavehu. That's why there are image of Kruvim on the Arain. Interesting the Reb Simcha Zissel explains that what the Baal Turim is trying to bring out is the reason why the Kruvim are Kiyanuka is to show that Am Yisrael considers themselves like a katan, always looking to develop further, grow further, and never to be self-satisfied with, with their accomplishments that they've accomplished until now. It's very interesting. Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch points out that what was the first avodah of the day in the Beis HaMikdash? The very first service of the day in the Mikdash was something called Chumash Hadeshen, where they would gather all the ashes and they would Haitzas Hadeshen, they would clean out the ashes. Why was that the first avodah of the day? Says Reb Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, the first job of a Jew when they wake up in the morning is they have to say to themselves, I've never accomplished anything in my life. I don't have any mitzvahs. I don't have any masim tovim. Here we go. We got to do something today. And then the Yetzer Hara says, yeah, but remember 50 years ago you learned one word? No! We tell the Yetzer Hara, Haitzas Hadeshen. We're going to clear out any remnant of yesterday's avodah to make it as if we've never done anything so that we could start the day anew without any feelings of smugness or self-satisfaction that we've accomplished in the past. The first avodah of the day is remove any remnant of any past accomplishment. That's the first avodah of the day. That a Jew has to be on the madrega of Kinar Yisrael, that we're like a young child, we've never accomplished anything, and that gives us the motivation and the ambition to forge ahead and to try to accomplish as much as possible. It's interesting. Rabbi Yerucham writes that what is the main difference between us and the earlier generations? Let's say us and the Rishonim, or and the Tanoim, the Amoraim. Why were they so much greater than us? How were they able to accomplish so much more? How were they on such greater level? What's the main difference between us and them? Is it that we're further from Sinai? Is it that we're not as smart? Is it that our physical stamina is not as great, our mental stamina, our emotional stamina? What is the difference between our generation and the earlier generations? Rabbi Yerucham says the main difference is we don't have she'ifos, we don't have ambition, we don't have drive, we don't want it. We're not yearning and pining for more ruchnias. The hallmark of the greats of the earlier generations was that they had strong ambition and desire to climb the ladder in Avodas Hashem. And what the Rebbeinu Shalom loves is this madrega of Kinar Yisrael v'Oyaveyu. Yisrael are like children. That's why their image appeared on the Kruvim. Says Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, says the Baal Turim. Okay, let's do another pasuk. Karu lahem. I called out to them, Kein holchu mipneihem. So they walked from before. La ba'alam yizabechu, to the Baal they sacrificed, v'labsilam yikaterun, and to the images they offered. Well, let's see the Mitzudas David. Karu lahem, kol ma she'anavim harbu l'kor lahem. The more the prophets called out to them, b'shmi kein hirbu l'leches. Like to that extent, they went v'levrayach mipneim and ran away. V'loy avu l'shmaya. They didn't want to listen. Avol zavchu la'agalim. They sacrificed to the calves. Meaning, the more I sent the prophets, improve, be better, get your act together. To that extent, they left me. Says Rashi, Karu lahem kein halchum imneim. Kamash Nevi'im karan lahem l'lamdam derech ha'toiva. The more the Nevi'im called out to them to go to the good path, kein heim hafchu oiref. They likewise turned their necks, levrayach mipneim, to run away. Leba'olam yizabechu, derech hamikra ledaber kein. Kamai kerubam kein chatuli. B'chasher ya'anu oisai kein yirba. Rashi just explaining the style here of yizabechu, to the extent that I sent my prophets to rebuke them, to that extent they sacrificed to the Baal. Okay, let's read the next pasuk, and we'll explain it further, Mirz Hashem, next time. Pasuk Gimel. Va'anoichi sergalti le'Ephraim. I guided Ephraim. Kachem al zroy Yosef. I took them by his arms. V'lo yadu, and they did not know kirifasim, that they were being healed. Let's see the Mitzudas David. Va'anoichi halay anoichi hergalti es Ephraim. I guided Ephraim. Sheha'uman yikachim al zroy Yosef, that the nurse takes him by his arms. B'chem l'rabba. I gave them a good leader to guide them gently. This is Moshe. Shenemar ki kasher yisa ha'imein esayonik. Like a wet nurse carries a nursing child. They didn't know. They didn't realize that their healing and salvation was coming from me. Okay. So let's see Rashi. Rashi says, "Va'anoichi tergalti le'Ephraim kachem, shalachti lefnechem manig." I sent them a leader, hamargilim menachas, that guided them gently. Kachem al zroy Yosef zeh Moshe. This refers to Moshe. Shenemar boy. It says about Moshe, kasher yisa ha'imein es hayonik, like the wet nurse carries the child. Tergalti, kamay hergalti, ve'ein loy dimyain. They didn't know that I was healing them. Says Rashi, yoidim hayu, they knew. Ela shadashu ba'akev, they stepped on it. Asu atzmam, they made themselves kolo yoidim, as if they didn't know. Now Rashi says a very beautiful pshat, and there's another Rashi, I believe in Parshas B'Shalach, that says another pshat. Rashi here says va'agada. There's a Medrash Agada in the Medrash Rabbi Tanchuma. Darshu. Klape b'nei Yosef, referring to the sons of Yosef. Kishehiviyam lefnei Yaakov lebrachem. When Yosef brought Ephraim and Menashe to get a bracha from Yaakov, Ra Yaakov Risham Asidim Latzis Ephraim. Yaakov saw wicked people who were destined to come out of Ephraim. Who? Yeravam, Achav, V'nistakim min Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh left Yaakov. Yom mi elah. So Bikesh Yosef Rachamim, Yosef asked for mercy. V'shasa Ruach HaKodesh al Yaakov, the divine spirit again resided on Yaakov. Ubarcham, and Yaakov was able to bless them. When Yaakov felt that Ephraim was going to have Risham who's going to come out of him, he lost the divine spirit, but God returned it. This is what it means over here. Va'anoichi tergalti. I guided. What did I guide? I guided my spirit on Yaakov for the sake of Ephraim, and he took them on his arms. But there's another pshat in Va'anoichi tergalti le'Ephraim. Rashi says, Rashi says in B'Shalach, Perak Yedaleh Pasuk Chaf, Vayavoi bein Machanei Mitzrayim bein Machanei Yisrael, Vayihi ha'anan v'ha'choshech vayares ha'loila, v'loi karav zeh el zeh kol ha'loila. Says Rashi, Mashal, this is a parable. Someone going on the road, and his son was going in front of him. Robbers came to capture the son. The father puts the son behind him. Wolf comes from behind. The father puts the kid in front of him. They both come. So the father picks the kid up by his arms, and he fights off both of them. This is what it means. Va'anoichi tergalti le'Ephraim kachem al zroy Yosef. So to speak, he had to deal with the Yam in the front. He had to deal with Mitzrayim in the back. He lifts up Klal Yisrael. This is the kiyum of the pasuk. Va'anoichi tergalti le'Ephraim kachem al zroy Yosef. My Rabbi, wish everyone an amazing day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.